I know a lot of people do multiple reading challenges and they also do the 5x5. But this one for me was great because I could shop my shelves and really look and try and build categories off of that. And then I could still buy some, right? Still scratch that itch to get a new book in the mail. My Amazon overlord will send them to me. Welcome to Scholé Sisters, where we are cultivating the maximum number of thinking moms we can. This is the podcast for classical homeschooling mamas who yearn for something more than just checking boxes and getting it all done. Scholé Sisters discusses topics that matter to those of us who believe that educating ourselves through reading widely, thinking deeply, and applying faithfully equips us for the task of educating our children. I'm your host, Abby Wahl, and I am joined by my friend Mystie Winckler for this bonus episode all about the Scholé Sisters 5x5 Reading Challenge. So we're just going to jump into it today. And Mystie, would you please tell us about how the what this 5x5 challenge is and how it came to be?
Yeah, so actually, I came up with the idea of the 5x5 challenge just for myself. I was, it was about this time of year, the beginning of a new year, and I was looking at all my bookshelves full of books that I had not read. And I was considering not buying any books for the coming year, making that a goal and just actually reading what I own. Yeah, I realized that was a goal I was never going to keep. So instead, I was looking at the books and thinking about how I, bought way more books than I read the previous year. And I noticed that I, for the most part, buy books just within a few different topics, a few different genres of books. And so I said, well, instead of trying to not buy any books at all, obviously, if I am continually buying theology books and history books and all that, I should just commit to reading some theology books and some history books, because if I keep buying them, that means I really am interested, and I need to mirror that interest in my actual actions. And also, my dad was a reader, and I've always kind of summed up his approach to his own learning and then our homeschooling when I was growing up as, if you're interested in something, go to the library and read 5 books on it. And I had been looking at my reading in the previous year, and it was really abysmal. Especially for someone who likes to think of herself as a reader. I had not made it to even 25 books that year. And I recall, no, it was not even a baby year, so I don't have that as an excuse. I just hadn't really committed the time to reading. And so I said, okay, instead of thinking, well, I'm going to read all the books I've purchased, that's not happening.
No.
I am going to read 5 books in these 5 areas that I am continually interested in, as evidenced by my book buying habits.
Yes.
And the number 5 worked. I had to just admit that even reading 25 books that year was going to be a challenge, as embarrassing as that was to me at the time. And so I put together a 5x5 challenge of my own, and then pretty much everything else I put online. It's like, whoa, if I think this is a good idea, maybe some other people would like to do it too.
Yes. And you told us about it, and we decided that, well, this needs to be something for Scholé Sisters.
Yeah. Yeah, it fits so well with what we do. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea of picking 5 books to read in 5 different topics and admitting, that 25 books is actually a significant number of books.
Yes. Yes.
sometimes it's easy to get overambitious with the whole, 52 books or 100
Sure.
books. There are always challenges out there that are a lot.
Yeah.
But if we pick 5 topics that are meaningful topics and we read 5 books in each topic, we really are reading both broadly and deeply.
Yes.
And that's, I think, the beauty and simplicity of the 5x5 challenge. And then it's also super flexible and personal, where everyone's choosing their own categories.
Yes.
That fit where, you're currently at.
Yeah, I love it because it is different from other reading challenges. Oftentimes, there are flexible challenges too, but oftentimes they are much more specific.
Mm-hmm.
And they have many more, like a lot more rules or specific, authors or time periods or things like that. And I think they're all great. I know a lot of people do multiple reading challenges and they also do the 5x5. But this one for me was great because I could shop my shelves and really look and try and build categories off of that. And then I could still buy some, right? Still scratch that itch to get a new book in the mail. My Amazon overlord will send them to me. So I just loved that because there was books that I had been meaning to read and I have purchased with all the good intentions of, yes, I'm going to get to that someday. And it made me put these things down. Now, we have a really great printable sheet that has the different categories and, you can come up with fun names. I know I have in the past, and it's just really great. And I always include like my book club selections. So it's really great with some accountability in there. The other difference is that once you write it down, you're allowed to change it.
Yes.
Which I think
yes
is so much fun. Because in the years past, anytime we have done our mentorship, sometimes we don't have it decided in advance when we're making our 5x5 goals. And I end up saying, actually, I'm devoting so much time to reading these books, I need to put them on my 5x5 category. And so therefore I just, can stick it in later. Or I started a really big book and it's not going to get finished. So I can squeak in a really short one at the end of the year so I can get my 5x5. So I love the flexibility. I love the freedom of it. And I love that it challenges me to really stretch and grow in maybe areas that I wouldn't necessarily read more than one book in that genre. Like for me this year, I think I'm going to pick Russians. And if any of you have listened to the podcast for any amount of time, Russian novels or sometimes Scandinavian novels really depress me. So it's really, it's a real stretch for me to want to read those things. But this is my year. I'm making it. What if 25 books seems like too much? Do you have any suggestions? Because some people like you, that year that you felt like, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do 25 books. What are our other options?
Well, one is to just look at your reading habits. And I feel like some people just need to be told that audiobooks count as reading and they count as books.
Amen.
So the books that you read in a year don't have to be all, time spent sitting on the couch. The books that you read on Audible or Libby or whatever app,
LibriVox.
Yep. LibriVox. Mm-hmm. Those count as reading too, and they count in the challenges. So, there might be places where you can get some more reading in that you either weren't counting or you weren't even aware of, perhaps. Car trips, that kind of thing can be a great time to get some reading time in. And I call it reading. It's not subpar in any way. It totally counts. But then if 5x5 is a huge leap from where you're at, then we also have a 3x3 challenge, because baby stepping your way in the direction you want to go, towards reading more. If more books is 9, then just acknowledge that and still stretch yourself from where you're at. It's so tempting to try to leap over to where we want to end up and just try to get from where we are to where we want to be overnight or even in 1 year. And we're actually going to make better progress and stretch ourselves if we stretch in small steps from where we are actually at. So we do have a 3x3 challenge as well.
Yes.
That works on the same principles and just lowers that expectation a bit.
Yeah. And we've had people who were kind of at that place and felt like they could do maybe a little bit more, but they were going to count some of their read aloud picture books, right? We've had people who just know that they weren't going to get it, but they still wanted to participate. And so, we encourage you that there isn't really a wrong way to do this. It's getting into that habit of reading widely and broadly and being a little bit accountable, practicing and making some goals for yourself, right? This is the time of the year that everybody likes to make goals. And we just want to encourage you to continue throughout the year reading, because this isn't one of those ones that you can just be thinking, oh, I'll pick it up in a few months. It really does take,
Intentional time.
Yeah, you just have to keep reading, and it's a good pace. But starting with 10 minutes a day can really get you through a lot of pages.
Mm-hmm.
I just love this. Okay, so one of the fun things that we offer prizes.
Yes. Yes.
And sometimes we, talk about rewards and different things like this, but we do know that we need to acknowledge success. And so every year for the people who do finish the 5x5 challenge, we offer them put in a survey, and then you tell us, a little bit about your reading this year, and you tell us if you finished or not. And finishers get a lovely little finisher pin. And this year's are just cute as a button because they are just one of those little button pins. And they say the year and that you were a 5x5 reading challenge finisher. And it's so much fun. And usually there's something else in the envelope that comes with it. Sometimes it's been a bookmark, sometimes it's been a sticker. And so it's some fun little swag from us. And all you have to do is finish your reading.
Yes. And this isn't a challenge where you have to plan it all out in advance and then do exactly that plan. I think you touched on this a little bit already, but adjusting both categories and titles is totally allowed. It's a really flexible, personalized reading plan. And our goal is only that you are reading more and reading at least 25 books to get the finisher pin. You don't have to do a 5x5 to get a finisher's pin. There's always recalibration of those lists at the end of the year. Like, oh,
absolutely.
But what I find with the 5 different categories is that it helps stretch my reading to areas that I might not. So usually I have some categories that I always read every year. So like every year I want to read 5 theology books. And I mean, for this year, one of those theology books was Athanasius's On the Incarnation, which is like less than 100 pages.
Yep. I read that one. And I read Practicing the Presence of God, which is very small also. Totally counts.
Totally counts. And then usually at least one of the categories will be something unusual or a stretch for me or a different topic. So I have some standards and some stretch categories. And then that helps me not be in a reading rut.
Yes.
Where I'm just always reading the same kind of books, or it's like, oh, I should, not all books count equally. And there's fluff and twaddle reading, which can be fine. For me, my favorite kind of twaddle are business book twaddle.
Yeah.
And so The other thing that the 5x5 helps me with is limiting. Like if I have a category like business books, not more than 5 is also the way I use the challenge. At least not more than 5 until after I've finished the other categories, 5 books in the other categories, so that I don't just do what's easy only, but also spread myself out to other topics. And it's super interesting how the books talk to one another. You know, when you have multiple categories, but also multiple books in one category.
Yes.
I just think it sets you up for experiencing that serendipity with topics and having your books talk together in your head.
Yeah. And I'll just put this in for Brandy because when she listens to this, she'll be like, the science of relations. Right?
Yeah.
But yes, I find that too. And then I also find that when I read about a specific topic, it will eliminate some of the things that maybe aren't as helpful or as true, like things that get repeated often. I know that those must be important things. And then maybe one of the books has something unique, but maybe isn't quite right. And it's either confirmed or basically dismissed by some of the other books. So it kind of keeps you seeing different perspectives and really getting a broad knowledge, but a little bit of depth as well, and some unique insights. When you become more familiar with a subject, it actually becomes easier to read about as well, because you just are gaining depth of understanding. And so maybe at the beginning it's a stretch, but by the end of reading, you know, some of these things in this genre, you really have a good grasp on this topic at hand that you've been interested in.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So one other thing that we do offer in our online community group, which is the Sistership, which is free to join. We do have also a paid side, which is the Sophies. And in there, we have a special group called the 5x5 Accountability Group, which is ongoing weekly support. And then once a quarter, we have basically kind of a Zoom where we all check in and talk about books. We troubleshoot. We talk about changing things up. I love these discussions because I always come away with more book suggestions. And really, it's so encouraging to see all of these women who are reading and finding so much success and how it's really helping them in their lives because they are stretching their intellectual life. And it's just so encouraging. And I love doing it. So each week I will post something in there. People will tell me what they're reading. And then the next week we follow up and say, yes, I did read it, or nope, everyone got sick and no one did anything. We talk about realities and real life, but it really just helps us keep moving forward. So if you're someone who does need more support or encouragement or just really loves accountability, you know, you can come and join me in Sistership, and it is super fun. And everyone who participates in that group, they just talk about how much more consistent they are when they do, you know, basically just state what you're going to do. And you have that intention, and it's amazing how just even stating an intention really just helps us reach our goals.
Yeah.
So, Mystie, do you have anything else to talk about, to share about the 5x5?
Well, I do think that one way that we can help ourselves read more is just to surround ourselves by other women who are reading and thinking. If you don't have a real life friend that likes to talk books, or even if you do and you just need more of that, then Sistership is a great community of reading, thinking women. And there's always someone who's experienced whatever stage of life you're at. I just love how we can offer one another both encouragement and understanding as well as inspiration and motivation. It really, truly is helpful to have that community aspect when you're trying to stretch yourself. And when you see, we get ideas, book ideas from one another, and we just see how it is possible to work in reading and growing and thinking alongside a busy, active life. So It's fun to get the pin at the end, but it's also just a wonderful opportunity to be a part of so many women from all over and all stages engaged with the world.
In the world of books.
In the world of books, yeah, with their minds.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, thanks. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of the sisterhood of the podcast. If you're interested in taking the 5x5 challenge, then go to scholésisters.com/5x5. For more support and accountability, head on over to Sistership for our 5x5 accountability group and meet other women who read widely, think deeply, and faithfully discuss and apply the ideas that they encounter. Sistership is private, ad-free, drama-free, and free to join. We'll see you in our next season coming up soon. Bye.
Bye.
And I'm not doing our big intros because I feel like this is, I don't want to introduce myself as the queen of the sistership.